It is Sunday, December 22nd, 2013. I'm standing outside the corpse cold Unitarian Church in Montreal on the day after the winter solstice 2013. Of course, when I use the term corpse cold, I mean that in a literal, figurative sense. Although, who knows, maybe one day this corpse cold Unitarian Church will in fact be a literally corpse cold Unitarian Church if it actually goes out of business as a result of its extreme hypocrisy, its complete not only failure but obstinate refusal to live up to the claimed principles and purposes that are etched in metal in a sculpture in its lobby just behind that banner, which says Vivre ensemble, live in harmony, and has the symbols of Taoism, Christianity, humanism, it's hard to see from here, I think Islam, Sikhism, Unitarian Universalism, and various other religions there, Hinduism, Buddhism. Here's the Unitarian Church of Montreal saying, live together, live in harmony, when it is simply refuses to do so with me and other people. And then here on the wayside pulpit, over on the left, we see we need not think alike to love alike. And one thing I'm noticing is that in the video, this actually is more readable than in real life. I don't understand why, but looking at this thing with my eyes, which I admit suffer from some astigmatism, but nonetheless, it's kind of hazy, foggy from the frost on the window. And of course, I like the symbolism here. Here's this corpse cold Unitarian Church of Montreal saying, we need not think alike to love alike, when in fact they are incredibly cold-hearted people in terms of how they have behaved towards me and other people. And then, of course, we can broaden that out to the larger Unitarian Universalist religious community, and we can bring that down to 25 Beacon Street in Boston, where people who do not think alike with me do not conduct themselves in a very loving manner. Now, I will admit that I can't say I've been all that loving myself in recent years, or even for some time, but this is in response to just incredibly unloving behavior on the part of not only Montreal Unitarians, not only UUA leaders, but also many other Unitarian Universalists who have not behaved in an even remotely loving manner, when I have actually quite reasonably expressed a different opinion about certain things. When I was trying to explain my profound revelatory religious experience to Reverend Ray Drennan in November of 1995, he rudely interrupted me and stuck his face within inches of mine with a nasty grimace scowl on it and said, "You mean your psychotic experience?" And he then proceeded to angrily insist that I seek professional help. After that, as we were continuing our little discussion and I was trying to explain Creation Day to him, this was an interreligious event that actually brought together many of the previously mentioned religious groups there. We had participation from Christians, Hindus, Muslims, Baha'is, pagans. We had a Montreal Pagan Grove participate. This was actually a difficult thing to do, to bring together pagans with monotheistic religions and vice versa. It was not an easy thing to accomplish. Both were suspicious of each other. The pagans were not all that keen in participating on an interreligious event with religions that had persecuted them for thousands of years, and the religions that had persecuted them for thousands of years were a little bit leery of participating in a friendly interreligious event that included pagan participation. But it did happen. I was able to persuade people who did not think alike to nonetheless come together and have an interreligious celebration with the emphasis being on care for the creation. Basically a kind of spiritual, religious Earth Day kind of thing, with the emphasis, on the, the creation myths and creation stories of the different religions, different takes on that, but with the emphasis being on actual care for the environment, care for the earth. They all came together. They did not think alike, but they decided to, if not love alike, at least come together in a manner that was mutually respectful and so on. And yet, this interreligious event was slandered as a cult by Reverend Ray Drennan and other leading members of the Unitarian Church of Montreal, including the president of the Unitarian Church of Montreal, Frank Green. Also the current president of the Unitarian Church of Montreal, John Inder, sometime later, also to my face, described Creation Day as a cult. So yes, Reverend Ray Drennan, Frank Green, John Inder did not think alike regarding my interreligious event known as Creation Day. And they expressed their disagreement in a hateful and a slanderous manner. And today, to this very day, this slander, this character assassination of me has never been responsibly acknowledged by either the Unitarian Church of Montreal or Unitarian Universalist Association of Congregations. The UUA is not responsible for what Frank Green and John Inder and other lay people said about Creation Day, but they are responsible for how they handled my complaint against Reverend Ray Drennan. And they actually had the unmitigated gall to say that Reverend Ray Drennan's intolerant and abusive behavior that was described in considerable detail in the letter of grievance that I sent to Boston. They actually had the gall to say that this was within the appropriate guidelines of ministerial leadership. So don't ask me how. I mean, I think it's simply untrue, obviously. I mean, I think that if one actually read the guidelines, that would be the Unitarian Universalist Ministers Association guidelines, that if Reverend Ray Drennan's behavior was not out of alignment with the letter of those guidelines, it was certainly out of alignment with the spirit of those guidelines. And yet, Reverend Diane Miller, the Executive Secretary of the Unitarian Universalist Association's Ministerial Fellowship Committee, and apparently the executive of that Ministerial Fellowship Committee, actually committed to writing their opinion that it seemed to them that Reverend Ray Drennan's anti-religious intolerance and bigotry, verbally and psychologically abusive attack on me, his false and abusive characterization of me as being psychotic, was within the appropriate guidelines of ministerial leadership. Yeah. We need not think alike to love alike. Yeah, tell me another funny story, Unitarian Universalist. And then you expect me to be loving. You expect me to reach out in love and compassion. It's not that I haven't done that. I think I've been in the past and even quite recently reaching out in a way that is loving and definitely reasonably snow grader in the past. Front end loader there. Lots of background noise. There have been actually quite a few occasions where I've reached out in love and compassion towards those who have behaved in an intolerant and abusive manner to me, or if they haven't actually engaged in an intolerant and abusive manner towards me, have nonetheless condoned the intolerant and abusive behavior of Reverend Ray Drennan and other Unitarian Universalist clergy and other Unitarian Universalist lay people. And yet every time I've done so, my reaching out in love and compassion has been either totally ignored or callously rebuffed or even responded to in a punitive manner. So when I do try to reach out in a manner that can be seen as at least compassionate. It is rejected. So at a certain point in time, you have to say, well, yeah, let's give these people a good slap upside the head. Maybe that will knock some sense into them. It's amazing, actually, just how how masochistic these people seem to be, because in spite of repeated solid verbal pokes at their hypocrisy, at their injustices and abuses, usually just, by the way, throwing their own words back at them. My technique for giving Unitarian Universalists a good slap upside the head, figuratively speaking, is to throw back their own words at them in a way that's truthful, that they can't deny. They I don't know, they seem to, maybe they are masochists, because they don't seem to respond appropriately by going, Robin, you're right. We shouldn't have said these things. We shouldn't have, allowed Reverend Ray Drennan to falsely and maliciously label Creation Day as a cult. We shouldn't have allowed him to denigrate and disparage your experience as being nothing more than a psychotic experience. We shouldn't have allowed Reverend Victoria Weinstein to blog a sodomy fantasy imagining South Dakota State Senator Bill Napoli anally impaled on the Statue of Liberty's torch when she was angry about some of the things he had said. We shouldn't have allowed Reverend Cynthia P. Kane to characterize all Republicans as really mean people who do suck. We shouldn't have turned a blind eye to the fact that some cowardly anonymous Unitarian Universalists who I personally have very good reason to believe are including Unitarian Universalist clergy, started a slanderous and libelous attack blog called the Rob and Edgar Sucks blog. When I bring these things to the attention of the UUA, they ignore them, or they even pretend it's acceptable. In the case of Reverend Victoria Weinstein, when I filed a formal clergy misconduct complaint about the fact that, amongst other things, she had blogged a sodomy fantasy to her Peace Bank blog, in which she said, and this is an exact quote to the best of my recollection, "Here's my sodomy fantasy. South Dakota State Senator Bill Napoli anally impaled on the Statue of Liberty's torch." She's also on record as saying how she would like to kick a thief who stole some things from her church in the teeth and hard. She's also on record as actually physically kicking one of her congregants' children in the rear end twice and hard, according to her own testimony. So this is physical abuse, physical corporal punishment of a young member of a Unitarian Universalist parish that she belonged to before she got shunted off to First Parish Norwell. She happily blogs about the fact that she kicked this kid twice in the rear end hard because he had been caught shot. This is hardly responding to things in a loving manner. Anyway, when I brought all of this verbal and psychological abuse, and in fact physical abuse, to the attention of the Unitarian Universalist Department of Ministry, specifically Reverend Beth Miller, specifically Reverend Dr. Tracy Robinson Harris, they conveniently ruled that because Reverend Dr. Victoria Weinstein's blogging was done pseudonymously, in other words, her real name was not attached to her blog, even though she clearly identified herself as a New England Unitarian Universalist pastor serving a historic New England Unitarian Universalist parish. This was outside of her role as a minister. I believe they threw the word professional in there. Yeah, very professional of Reverend Dr. Victoria Weinstein to post these insulting and defamatory, indeed obscene and sadistic blog posts to the internet. Clearly identified as a Unitarian Universalist minister, even if it wasn't clear which Unitarian Universalist minister she was. From my perspective, if you identify yourself as a Unitarian Universalist minister, but you don't say which specific Unitarian Universalist minister you are, and then you go around insulting and defaming people on the internet, this is actually worse and more harmful to the Unitarian Universalist religious community than if you attach your name to your words. Because people are wondering, well, which Unitarian Universalist minister is this? Which minister serving a historic New England parish, in this case, First Parish Norwell, which wasn't known at the time. Which parish are we talking about here? Is it somewhere in New Hampshire? Is it New York? Is it Massachusetts? Is it Connecticut? Which one is it? I suppose, at least from process of elimination, they knew it wasn't like somewhere in California or the Midwest or Florida or something like that. But nonetheless, Peace Bang, Reverend Dr. Victoria Weinstein's evil twin sister alter ego on the internet, clearly was identified as a Unitarian Universalist minister, and clearly was. I mean, this wasn't a case of someone pretending to be a Unitarian Universalist minister, to give Unitarian Universalism a bad name. No, this was actually a Unitarian Universalist minister who was spouting all kinds of insults, abuse, defamation, and indeed obscene and sadistic material to her blog. And yet, this was okay. No problem. It's outside of her role as a minister. I mean, God knows what else can be outside the role of a minister. One wonders if, could it be possible, for instance, for Reverend Victoria Weinstein, also known as Peace Bang, to moonlight as a BDSM dominatrix? I mean, that could be considered outside of her role as a minister, couldn't it? I think on that note, we're wrapping up this probably final video on the solstice, or just after.